A character's outfit can be more important than you might think. It might simply grab the audience's attention, or it can help define who the character is in the context of the film, particularly when it comes to period pieces and superhero movies, in which seemingly tiny incorrect details can make a huge difference, and cause a huge uproar. Here's a look at some of the most controversial movie costumes in recent memory, as well as the explanations for their existence. Karen Gillan. Jumanji. In September 2016, audiences got their first look at a set photo from Jake Kasdan's Jumanji. Welcome to the Jungle, a new adventure inspired by 1995's Robin Williams-led adaptation of the Chris Van Allsburg children's book. As lovers of dinosaurs, action thriller movies, and Chris Pratt await the release of Jurassic World Dominion, there's still plenty of fun to be had rewatching and re-examining the original Jurassic Park trilogy and the two Jurassic World movies we've gotten thus far. While the first movie, released in 1993, features only 6 species of dinosaur: Tyrannosaurus Rex, Brachiosaurus, Velociraptor, Triceratops, Gallimimus, and the cute but deadly Dilophosaurus, further installments have introduced to more than 5 times the amount of prehistoric creatures, including fictional dinosaur hybrids like the Indominus Rex and the Indroraptor. Throughout its 5 films, in addition to all those dinosaurs, the Jurassic Park franchise has featured plenty of incredible scenes, many shots fraught with drama, suspense, and plenty of prehistoric scares from the many animatronic and CGI dinosaurs. The initial shot of Dr. Alan Grant, Sam Neill, and company driving through the iconic Jurassic Park gates is breathtaking and chilling, with a great deal of that coming from the original score from John Williams. The scene in which Dennis Nedry, Wayne Knight, was blinded and then killed by a Dilophosaur was satisfying, considering the amount of chaos he caused. In the photo, Dwayne Johnson, Kevin Hart, and Jack Black are each wearing jungle-appropriate outfits, alongside co-star Karen Gillan, who's wearing what amounts to child-sized clothing. And the sequence in which lawyer Donald Gennaro, Martin Ferrero, was eaten by the Tyrannosaurus was low-key hilarious while also being pretty terrifying. After a solid rewatch, we've taken the time to go through all of the Jurassic Park movies and compile a list of such memorable scenes. These are the most paused moments in the Jurassic Park franchise. Jimmy Buffett was washed away in Margaritaville. Viewers who've seen 2015's Jurassic World likely noticed there was a world of difference between the theme park conceptualized in the series relaunch and the one seen in the initial 1993 adaptation of the novel by Michael Crichton. The photo prompted immediate criticism, prompting Gillan to try and diffuse controversy by telling The Hollywood Reporter, "The payoff is worth it, I promise." THR later revealed that the first footage for the film, which screened at CinemaCon in March, does explain Gillan's skimpy outfit. The plot involves 4 high school students who are forced to clean out the basement of their school while in detention, reads a recap. They find an old video game, rather than a board game, and each chooses a character to play. Gillan's character is a shy girl who transforms into her adult character, and, as viewers saw in the film's first trailer, the costume choice is a reflection of the way video games portray women. George Clooney, Batman and Robin. Joel Schumacher's Batman and Robin was a disaster, to put it mildly. Whereas the first iteration of Jurassic Park was more akin to a zoo, Jurassic World is a full-fledged theme park, with all the bells, whistles, and merchandise tie-ins. Setting aside the cartoony elements, the terrible dialogue, and poor plot choices, fans will never forget the movie costumes, specifically the bat nipples. There's no way I can explain it to you other than I had no idea that putting nipples on the bat costume were going to make international headlines, Schumacher explained in a Batman special. Instead of riding around in colorful SUVs, guests are whisked around on a monorail. Much like Walt Disney World's Magic Kingdom's Main Street, USA, Jurassic World has its own Main Street with real-world franchise locations. There's a Ben & Jerry's ice cream shop right next to a Dave & Buster's restaurant, arcade concept, and enough shopping outlets to qualify as a mall. You may have noticed there's also a Jimmy Buffett's Margaritaville at the park, the tropical casual dining experience tied to the namesake singer's hit song. What you may not have noticed is the son of a sailor singer himself made an appearance in the crowd during the sequence in which the pterodons are terrorizing everyone in sight. The bodies for the suits, the inspiration for them are Greek statues that have perfect bodies. As you can see in the above image, while everyone else is running for their lives, Buffet has his priorities in order and is seeing to those frozen concoctions that help him hang on. According to Yahoo, his cameo appearance was a result of his longtime friendship with Jurassic World producer Frank Marshall. And so, we're molding this perfect body in rubber, and they're anatomically erotic. So, it never occurred to me not to put nipples on the men's suits because I didn't know the male nipple was a controversial body part. That all sounds reasonable enough, and if Batman and Robin had succeeded on many other levels, audiences might have been able to look past the costume distractions. Alas, the movie sent the entire franchise into limbo for a solid decade, leaving fans with years to mock the worst misstep in the franchise's long cinematic history. Ryan Reynolds, Green Lantern. This costume caused controversy the second fans caught a glimpse. An all-CGI Green Lantern? Original stills and trailers for the film looked pretty awful, and although the studio insisted it would look amazing on screen, the animated costume has been widely held up as one of many reasons for the film's failure. Buffet and his Coral Reefer Band even played at the Jurassic World premiere after party. Donald Gennaro says, "Oh crap. Though these most paused moments aren't in any particular order, it's only appropriate that this one comes in the number 2 spot." In the original, Jurassic Park, Alan Grant, Dr. Star Ryan Reynolds later admitted he didn't care for the CGI ensemble. Ian Malcolm, Jeff Goldblum, Tim Murphy, Joseph Mazzello, Lex Murphy, Ariana Richards, and Donald Gennaro are returning in the automated Ford Explorers when Dennis Nedry is making his big escape to the docks. I mean, it's brutal doing a film where you're wearing a motion capture suit for the whole time, he pointed out. It's nighttime, it's raining, and their SUVs just so happen to be passing by the Tyrannosaurus paddock when Nedry's program executes, shutting down power to the vehicles and the high-voltage security fences meant to keep the dinosaurs and guests from mingling. All of a sudden that goat the control room tried to goad the T-Rex out with earlier stops bleeding. All of a sudden we see that iconic shot of the rippling water glasses, courtesy of the shockwaves caused by the T-Rex's steps. I didn't even get to see the Green Lantern suit until the first trailer. All of a sudden part of said goat's carcass drops on the vehicle and all of a sudden Donald makes a run for the bathroom, leaving the kids behind. The Tyrannosaurus breaks containment, as they're wont to do, and goes after the last thing it saw moving, as they're wont to do. After toppling the lead SUV yields no fruit, Alan gets her attention with a road flare, and Ian follows suit, telling the former to get the kids. When the T-Rex chases him into the bathroom, it completely falls apart, leaving only poor Donald sitting there atop a toilet, about to be snapped up in her jaws. If you look closely, you'll see the lawyer was still wearing pants and was seemingly only taking cover in the bathroom, to everyone's relief. Stay away from Mommy's little monster. There are fewer things we can think of that are dumber than choosing to travel to Isla Sorna, Ingen's backup dino hatchery featured in the first sequel, The Lost World, Jurassic Park, and one of them is snatching up an infant Tyrannosaurus Rex and trying to treat it like a wounded puppy, rather than an angry adult dinosaur magnet. I never even knew what it looked like. The filmmakers wanted to do something new for a superhero, and costume designer Nagila Dixon came up with the idea that the suit was his power manifesting outside the body. An interesting idea, but the special effects just didn't hold up, and Dixon agreed. Well, as it turns out, Ian Malcolm's girlfriend, Dr. Sarah Harding, Julianne Moore, does both. She was already working for John Hammond's, Richard Attenborough, Ingen Company when Ian is asked to lead a mission to the abandoned dinosaur factory, in which the critters are just running wild. He only agrees to do so in order to bring her back. You'd think he'd have stayed clear of paleontologists after the first movie. After they realize Ingen's plan is to capture a bunch of specimens to stock a Jurassic Park attraction in San Diego, the good guys misguidedly release a bunch of them to wreak havoc. We were literally doing like what you would sculpt in a studio, but we were doing it with a computer, she recalled. En route back to their tricked-out RV, Nick Van Owen, Vince Vaughn, nabs a cute infant T-Rex and he and Sarah tend to its wounds. In many respects, we were following all the same principles, but you never got the tangible result that you get from the build you do in a costume house.
Rebel Wilson. Pitch Perfect 3. Even before Pitch Perfect 3 made its way to theaters, the production caught flack for potential discrimination against their plus-size stars. When Ian gets back to the trailer, he insists they throw the baby out with the bathwater. As a concerned parent himself, he worries what could happen. They, of course, get the answer instantaneously when they hear a roar and see their SUV tumble off a cliff. Mommy's very angry, Ian says. Rebel Wilson posted a photo online of herself alongside co-stars Brittany Snow and Chrissy Fit. While the latter two were wearing sleeveless tops, Wilson was in short sleeves. The photo prompted accusations of size discrimination, arguably intensified since Wilson has been a public advocate for a healthy female body image. The controversy intensified when people pointed out that Esther Dean, One of Wilson's co-stars also wore a similar sleeved version of the striped sailor top in a photo posted on her Instagram feed. Movie costume designer Salvador Perez ultimately took to Twitter to try and put out the fire. "I let each actor decide how their costume fit, it was their choice," Perez wrote. Rebel, Esther and Hannah Mae wanted sleeves. In another photo posted by Kelly Jackal, each of the stars are seen wearing a variety of styles of the same sailor top. It appears that the photo that ignited the controversy in the first place may have been taken out of context. Margot Robbie, Suicide Squad. Harley Quinn's big screen debut in David Ayer's Suicide Squad was one of the movie's biggest draws, especially since Margot Robbie was playing the famed villain. As with any other comic book character, a lot of media attention focused on her movie costume, particularly how much of it there was. When asked about her body-hugging costume, Robbie told The New York Times she was wearing hot pants because they're sparkly and fun, but that didn't mean she necessarily enjoyed the experience. As Margot, "No, I don't like wearing that," she admitted. "I'm eating burgers at lunchtime. And then you go do a scene where you're hosed down and soaking wet in a white t-shirt. It's so clingy, and you're self-conscious about it." Ayer offered his perspective, saying he didn't think denim overalls would be appropriate for that character, and insisting Robbie understood, that's part of the iconography. He may have a point. Harley initially wore a jester suit in Batman, the animated series, but over the years, her wardrobe has changed significantly as the character went from being a jester to more of a sex symbol in the comic book industry, who's now made her way into Hollywood, hot pants and all. Marilyn Monroe. The 7-year itch. Everyone's seen photos of Marilyn Monroe standing on a subway grate in a free-flowing white dress. But she's not the only one. There's an angry T-Rex parent on either side of the trailer and, just like the cooks in that classic Chili's commercial, they want their baby back. Mosasaurus vs. Great White. When Scamps Zach, Nick Robinson, and Gray Mitchell, Ty Simpkins, ditch their chaperone Zara, Katie McGrath, to finally go see something cool enough to impress Zach's older brother's sensibilities, it takes Jurassic World's Mosasaurus, a giant aquatic dinosaur that's somehow smaller than an ichthyosaur, to get his attention. The shot filmed for Monroe's 1955 release The 7-Year Itch was totally intentional, but the filmmakers didn't imagine it would cause such a stir. It didn't take a genius to figure out that filming Monroe in public might generate some buzz for The 7-Year Itch, so they shot on a real New York street, invited 100 photographers, and let a crowd of over 2,000 watch the action. The Mosasaur Enclosure is eerily reminiscent of the Orca attractions at SeaWorld, an amphitheater with bleacher-style seating in a semicircle surrounding the tank. Photographer George Zimble was there and said the crowd went, "50s wild," a more polite kind of enthusiasm than we see from crowds today, every time Monroe's dress flew up. Except instead of a wetsuit-clad trainer risking their life feeding the killer whale a fish by hand, they're feeding a massive aquatic dinosaur a shark with a crane. The crowd loved Marilyn and she easily stole the picture, but one man was definitely not a fan of the stunt. Baseball star Joe DiMaggio, Monroe's husband at the time, unexpectedly arrived at the raucous set. That's not just any shark, however, it's a great white shark. We assume a fictional reality in which dinosaurs are being cloned has fixed the real problems the Earth's oceans and its shark populations, given that the great white is classified as a vulnerable species by the World Wildlife Federation. There's a great deal of symbolism in the scene. Feeding the modern ocean's alpha predator to this other creature like a sardine straight out of the can is meant to demonstrate its awesomeness and strength beyond what its massive size can do visually. But it's also a nod to one of the creative minds that launched the Jurassic Park franchise. Director Steven Spielberg helmed Jurassic Park and The Lost World, but had previously directed the shark thriller franchise, Jaws, which featured a great white terrorizing the fictional New England town of Amity. The shark being fed to the Mosasaurus happens to be trussed up just like the red herring tiger shark that was not the source of the town's problems in the first movie. The T-Rex takes San Diego as previously mentioned. Ingen's big plan in The Lost World, under the direction of John Hammond's usurping nephew Peter Ludlow, Arliss Howard, is to capture a bunch of the dinosaurs that are running wild on Isla Sorna. After watching his wife ogled and hollered at, he decided to leave with his friend and columnist Walter Winchell. The idea is to transport them to the mainland United States, specifically San Diego, California, to populate an unfinished Jurassic Park facility that Hammond had chosen to leave vacant in favor of having the original park self-contained on Isla Nublar. Zimble recounted the moment, recalling, "They were very publicly leaving and everything stopped for their exit. There was a changed mood on the set and everyone could feel it." According to the New York Times, Monroe and DiMaggio got in a terrible fight after filming, and the next day on set, Monroe needed makeup to cover the bruises. Naturally, that worked out perfectly, no one was hurt, and they all went on to live happy and fulfilling lives secure in the knowledge that the world would be a better place. Except not. Though the revealing dress wasn't the only problem in the marriage, it did seem to be the straw that broke the camel's back, as Monroe filed for divorce 3 weeks after the infamous scene. As for the dress itself, costume designer William Travilla didn't imagine it would become his most memorable piece. He took care to give Monroe an outfit that would convey her sweet, innocent nature, while still letting her sexiness shine through. Plenty of things went wrong. Too many people were hurt in the process, and the corporate apathy to the moral questions underpinning the idea is something that pervades the rest of the Jurassic Park movies, a fact made self-evident by the continuation of the franchise. But the worst part is things didn't all go wrong soon enough, because the ship carrying the male Tyrannosaurus actually managed to make it to port before crashing, at which point the T-Rex, with apologies to Southwest Airlines, is now free to move about the country. This image defies belief for more than one reason. The dress was hand-pleated with metal boning and made in an ivory crepe. Weirdly, ivory would look more white than white on film, so every Marilyn Monroe impersonator has been getting it wrong for years. For starters, a Tyrannosaurus is about to tromp its way through a city, an idea so surreal it only works for a short amount of time. Despite his detailed work, Travilla always called it, "that silly little dress," and didn't seem to appreciate all the fuss. Carrie Fisher, Return of the Jedi Princess Leia's metal bikini struck an immediate chord with adolescent male fans of the Star Wars series from the moment it debuted in Return of the Jedi. But also, there have got to be some Gen Z kids out there who would refuse to believe gas was ever $1.15 for regular 87-octane unleaded. T-Rex? More like T-Rescue. The climactic final showdown right before the end of the first Jurassic Park movie takes place in the park's visitor center. As Tim and Lex sit down to dinner, having finally been returned to safety by Alan, Lex freezes and then starts shaking so hard her lime gelatin falls off her spoon. She sees the shadow of a Velociraptor on the wall behind her brother and the two take refuge in the kitchen, with the raptors in pursuit. After they trap one in the walk-in cooler, they reunite with Alan Grant and Doctor, but not everyone fell in love with the Slave Leia outfit. In fact, many viewers found it to be a prime example of sexual objectification and sexist treatment of the series' only notable female character at the time. Ellie Sattler, Laura Dern, and head for the control room. Just because Lex manages to get the security system rebooted and the doors locked doesn't mean a Velociraptor is going to give up. Carrie Fisher, who played Leia and had to put up with decades of discussion around the outfit, warned Daisy Ridley, star of The Force Awakens, "Don't be a slave like I was. You keep fighting against that slave outfit." The designers of the infamous two-piece have insisted they never intended the movie costume to be demeaning. It crashes through the window and follows them through the ventilation system to the lobby and, at one point, all four humans and the dinosaur are dangling from a skeleton suspended from the ceiling. After all parties come crashing down, it looks like the end for our brave heroes, especially since the other raptor has seemingly escaped its frosty prison. Things are looking bleak, with one raptor about to pounce, when the T-Rex shows up and snatches the much smaller dino up in its jaws. The humans look on in amazement as they're effectively rescued by the same massive carnivore that had terrorized them so recently. Aggie Gerard Rogers and Nilo Rodis Yamero based the design off Frank Frazetta's artwork for the cover of The Princess of Mars. Allen & Co. George Lucas loved the idea, and since he wanted something special for the scene, he got it. Fisher got extra attention on set while wearing the getup, for more reasons than one. Since it was literally made of metal, the outfit wouldn't stay in place. Beat feet as the second raptor jumps on the T-Rex, itself eventually being flung to the side. After the shots, the prop man would have to check me, she recalled. He'd say, "Okay, TS are fine." Having established dominance, the T-Rex does what comes naturally. It roars and the banner reading, "When dinosaurs ruled the earth," falls to the floor around it. Spoiler alert. Dinosaurs still rule the earth. Just chilling in the raptor paddock in the first act of Jurassic World, we meet the contemptible Vic Hoskins, Vincent D'Onofrio, the Ingan security operations stooge who's seemingly bent on using dinosaurs for what he sees as their many potential military applications. Let's go. Though Fisher may not have loved the revealing outfit, she refused to be victimized by it. During a controversy over Slave Leia figures decades later, she quickly pointed out that the character's brief time in captivity ends with her killing Jabba, with her own chain. "That chain only enslaved me," tweeted Fisher, "until I could use the frabjous thing to kill that drooling swollen supertongued slug and whirl him off into infinity." As always, Fisher had the last and best word. Princess Marita. Brave Princess Marita from Brave has been hailed as one of Disney's least princess-y princesses. After all, drones can't search tunnels and caves, in addition to the fact that they're hackable. From her refusal to marry to her amazing archery skills and her insistence that her curly hair run free, audiences felt Marita was a step in the right direction, so it was all the more disappointing when Disney dolled her up later on. When Marita was officially announced as the 11th Disney princess, the corporation debuted a new illustration of the Scottish lass, and a number of fans weren't pleased. In the event of a real conflict, technology will become old hat, with militarized velociraptors serving as the solution, in his estimation. Right after Owen Grady, Chris Pratt gets done demonstrating what amazing work he's done with his team of velociraptors, and seemingly fending off Hoskins successfully in what appears to be only the latest in a series of frustrating encounters. Young raptor handler Colby Boothman carelessly gets dragged down into their paddock when trying to wrangle a pig that got loose. Rather than let Darwinism play out, Owen insists on putting his own life in jeopardy to try to rescue the new guy. The 2D drawing gave Marita a slightly slimmer figure, bigger eyes, and an all-around more glammed-up look. Brave co-director Brenda Chapman didn't mince words, saying, "I think it's atrocious what they have done to Marita. When little girls say they like it because it's more sparkly, that's all fine and good, but, subconsciously, they are soaking in the sexy, come hither look and the skinny aspect of the new version. It only makes sense. If anyone is going to be able to save this moron's life, it's the person who's been working with the Raptors day in and day out. The person on whom they imprinted the day they were born." Owen insists on talking Blue, Charlie, and Delta down himself. Echo was in the enclosure as well, but he didn't address her by name for some reason. Because if the other workers were to use their electronic weapons to stun them, he'd lose all the progress he'd made. It's a real sphincter clencher of a moment, especially when Owen tells Barry, Omar Sy, to close the gate, though he does a neat little somersault to safety. Showdown with the Spinosaurus at the onset of Jurassic Park III, Dr. It's horrible. Marita was created to break that mold, to give young girls a better, stronger role model, a more attainable role model, something of substance, not just a pretty face that waits around for romance. Disney responded to the controversy by saying all the princesses are given new looks from time to time, and that particular version of Marita would just be one of many. Alan Grant needs funding to continue his research on velociraptors, so he does what any person who's been to Jurassic Park and clearly knows better would do. He agrees to give a rich couple and their shady associates an aerial tour of Isla Sorna, only to learn the idiots actually planned to touch down on that cursed rock. The company argued it had chosen that design because Marita would want to dress up for the special coronation. The fact that Marita hates getting dressed up in Brave and tears apart her fancy gown at the first opportunity didn't factor into the character design, apparently. Ryan Reynolds, X-Men Origins. Wolverine. You may have blocked it from your memory, but Ryan Reynolds played Deadpool before Deadpool. If only some kind of previous life experience had conditioned Alan to be wary of accepting money from rich people with an unhealthy interest in dinosaurs. Unfortunately, during his first outing as the character in X-Men Origins, Wolverine, the filmmakers decided to make the brave choice of doing everything they could to insult the fans. They took away his suit, including his mask, and they sewed his mouth shut, leaving a character who's literally referred to as the Merc with a mouth, physically unable to speak. Even director Gavin Hood admitted Deadpool came out all wrong in his film, explaining it was hard to fit Deadpool's personality into a PG-13 movie. Studio Audi, who applied the creature effects for the film, made a video explaining their whole side of the Deadpool tale. Wait, that happened only 2 movies ago. The third installment in the Jurassic Park trilogy introduces viewers to the latest in a long line of challengers to the Tyrannosaurus Rex's throne as ruler of the ancient world. The Spinosaurus, which, unlike the genetic hybrids introduced in the Jurassic World movies, is actually a real dinosaur, despite the flashy name. The artists believe the studio didn't intend for Deadpool to be fully formed in Wolverine, just a setup for what he could become in a later film. When Alan wakes up from an involuntary nap, courtesy of armed thug Cooper, John Deal, he finds they did indeed land. Karma comes for Cooper, as the group scrambles to get back on the plane and he's left behind. If you think of this as an embryonic Deadpool, suggested one artist, it might make more sense. Gal Gadot, Wonder Woman. If you had a nickel for every time Wonder Woman's costume caused a controversy, you'd have probably 10 nickels or so. Why's everyone in such a rush to leave? As they're about to take off, a Spinosaurus jumps out and devours Cooper, damaging the plane in the process and forcing a crash landing. From the comics to the screen, the DC superhero's attire has been the focus of attention numerous times over the years, so it's no surprise that from the second Gal Gadot signed on to play Wonder Woman in the DC Extended Universe, a number of pundits and fans immediately chimed in about how wrong she was. They manage to elude the Predator shortly, only to run smack into a Tyrannosaurus as they flee. Her performance in Batman vs Superman silenced many who claimed she was too thin and didn't have a hero's figure, but the controversy didn't end there. The Amazonian's latest costume seemed fairly appropriate, though a lot of people were unhappy about the shoes. Wonder Woman has to run around and kick ample butt in heels, which many argued were unnecessary and put the emphasis on sexiness over strength. Though the heels might not be the most practical thing for a superhero, the rest of the movie costume was thoroughly thought out. With apologies to Steeler's wheel, the scene very much has the feeling of T-Rex to the back of me, Spinosaurus to the front, here I am, stuck in the middle with you, though the group escapes when the dinosaurs battle. The king of the jungle meets the king of the ancient world, much like The Lost World, Jurassic World. Fallen Kingdom centers on capturing dinosaurs running wild on an island, swapping the setting of backup site Isla Sorna for the park's island, Isla Nublar, and antagonists in the form of Ingen for Eli Mills, Rafe Spall, the assistant to John Hammond's ailing former partner, Sir Benjamin Lockwood, James Cromwell. Designer Michael Wilkinson spoke to Preda reporter about his ideas behind her signature look. Also, instead of surreptitiously grabbing the animals to stock a previously abandoned attraction in the mainland United States, they're openly capturing the dinosaurs under the pretense of rescuing them from an imminent volcanic eruption, though their destination is not a nature preserve as promised. Instead, the specimens will be auctioned off to the rich and powerful. Things don't go as planned for the bad guys. We wanted to create something incredibly strong and portray her as a legitimate fighter, he assured fans. There was a lot of love that went into all the details, making her really look like a powerful, legitimate warrior. Now people have moved on to complaining that Wonder Woman doesn't have underarm hair. It seems the hero will never get a break. Bryce Dallas Howard. Jurassic World. Though audiences generally loved the dinosaur action and the guy carrying 2 margaritas as he ran from prehistoric monsters, there was one big problem with Jurassic World: Bryce Dallas Howard's heels. Howard played Claire, an uptight executive who ends up running around in mud, rain, and wet concrete and never for a moment takes off her nude pumps. Owen Grady and Claire Dearing, Bryce Dallas Howard, survive, despite being left for dead, and stow away on the transport ship. When they're discovered at the Lockwood estate, they escape captivity with the help of a hard-headed Stygimoloch or Pachycephalosaurus, which Owen sets loose in the auction chamber while the crown jewel, the Indoraptor, is on display. Everything goes bananas and the caged dinosaurs are about to be killed by poison gas, leaving Owen and Claire with the terrible choice of letting them die or releasing them to go free and invade the United States. Fortunately Maisie, Isabella Sermon, the clone of Lockwood's deceased daughter, makes the decision for them, setting the animals free. In the movie's denouement montage, as Dr. Ian Malcolm testifies before Congress, we see a Tyrannosaurus Rex approach a zoo and have an intense stare-down with a lion, with the animals roaring at each other. Clever girl, indeed, Mr. Muldoon in Jurassic Park, having not heard from Dr. Alan Grant, Tim, and Lex, the remaining people on the island work on getting the park systems back online. Chief Engineer Ray Arnold, Samuel L. Jackson, sets about rebooting everything, but has to head to a maintenance shed to complete the process. When he doesn't return, even when escaping a T-Rex, those heels stay glued to her feet. It's not hard to see why audiences had a problem. Heels would be the worst possible shoes to wear in that situation, and the pumps must have been made of magic since they never came close to falling off in any of her off-road adventures. But Howard defended the choice, telling Yahoo News, "I'm better equipped to run when I have shoes on my feet." Ellie Sattler and game warden Robert Muldoon, Bob Peck, head out to assess the situation. Unfortunately, they find the rebooting process has released the Velociraptors from their nearby enclosure. Obviously, whomever laid out the attractions on the island didn't factor in the idea that maybe the most dangerous animals should be far away from the place somewhere might need to go in order to restore the systems and power. Their solution is simple. Robert will distract the Velociraptors, who are pack hunters by nature, while Ellie turns the power back on. So that's my perspective on it. I don't think she would carry around flats with her. The only problem is one of the raptors peels off to take her on, leaving two for Muldoon to handle. I think she's somebody who could sprint a marathon in heels. For me, it was actually logical for her to be in that very illogical situation because she doesn't belong in the jungle and yet she finds herself there and has to adapt. Whether or not you like the pumps, you have to be impressed by Howard's ability to run in them without breaking an ankle. Sylvester Stallone. Judge Dredd is less than great for a number of reasons. One being a lot of screen time for Rob Schneider and another being the ridiculous way Sylvester Stallone hollers, "I am the law." But for longtime fans of the character, that wasn't the worst of it. In the comics, Judge Dredd famously never takes off his helmet, but Sylvester Stallone takes it off in under 20 minutes. Director Danny Cannon's original idea was to keep Dredd dark, violent, and NC-17. Ellie is attacked by the third raptor after flipping the switch but manages to hobble her way back out to the jeep. Muldoon, meanwhile, is tracking one of the raptors, shotgun in hand. He wanted the film to stick closer to the comics and have an overall gritty tone. Stallone, on the other hand, wanted a flat-out comedy. But as Alan warned earlier in the film, the attack doesn't come from ahead, it comes from the side. While Muldoon is stalking one of the Velociraptors, the other one is flanking him. According to Cannon, Stallone wanted countless rewrites and always pushed for more laughs. Plus, he had a less than reverent view of his character. Dredd? A role model? You've got to be kidding. This guy's a nut. In addition to making script changes, Stallone also wanted a say in the character's fashion. The movie costumes were partially designed by Emma Porteous and Gianni Versace, as Stallone wanted the fashion designer's take. Thinking he's outsmarted the raptor he's after by using his hat as a decoy, Muldoon eventually realizes he's the one who's fallen into a trap. Then come his famous last words, "Clever girl," he mutters to the raptor before it pounces. The Indominus Rex gets triple-teamed at the climax of Jurassic World. Owen Grady has managed to reconnect with Blue and the other Velociraptors, re-establishing himself as the alpha of the pack. When the Indominus Rex, which had managed to switch their loyalty earlier, owing to the fact that it's part raptor, comes along and figures out what's up, she is not happy and attacks Blue. If the loyalty of the remaining Velociraptors was ever in doubt, the Indominus attacking one of their own makes the sides very clear. Owen sics them on the Indominus and tries to lead Claire, Zack, and Gray to safety, but the larger dinosaur outmatches the two raptors. Apparently, Versace thought the future would run on codpieces, since they were heavily featured in his original, unused designs. Alan Grant, co-writer of the Dredd comics, said, "The story was subservient to Stallone, who, I think, takes himself too seriously." When Karl Urban was announced as the star of the 2012 Dredd reboot, he immediately assured fans he'd be leaving the helmet on. Maureen O'Sullivan, Tarzan and his mate Tarzan has always roamed around the jungle in a loincloth, and nobody ever seems to mind. Gray says they need more teeth, which gives Claire the insane but brilliant idea to add the Tyrannosaurus Rex into the mix. Against his better judgment, Lowry Crothers, Jake Johnson, the one employee left in the control room, releases the T-Rex and Claire leads it into battle with red flares, mirroring the initial T-Rex attack scene from Jurassic Park. As the Indominus is getting the better of the Tyrannosaurus, Blue recovers and re-enters the fray, fighting alongside the T-Rex. Now that it's a handicap match, things are shaking out a little differently. As the tide turns, the battle shifts away from the visitor center and the Indominus finds itself backed up against the edge of the lagoon. Unwilling to yield any more ground, it lets out a massive roar, which the T-Rex and Blue echo. But when Maureen O'Sullivan donned a similar ensemble to play Jane in 1934's Tarzan and his mate, it caused an uproar. Then player 4 enters the game. The Mosasaurus lunges out of the lagoon, grabs the Indominus by the throat in its massive jaws, and drags it down underwater. O'Sullivan, reprising her role from Tarzan the Ape Men 2 years previous, wore a small top and a very revealing skirt. Jane's skimpy outfit was all over the film and it freaked a lot of women out. Maureen O'Sullivan stated that the filmmakers wanted sensuality. At first, Jane was going to have no bra or top at all and she'd be covered by strategically placed leaves and such. More teeth indeed. That didn't work out. When O'Sullivan eventually got her costume, she felt it was perfectly fine and never thought it would be considered scandalous. But it caused such a furor, she recalled. The letters came in. Thousands of women who were objecting to my costume. I was offered all kinds of places where I could go in my shame to hide from the cruel public who were ready to throw stones at me. The Hayes office, where films were censored to avoid indecency, was just as outraged. In all subsequent sequels, Jane wore a much more traditional dress. Tarzan and His Mate was one of the last pre-code films, marking the final glimpse of side boob and upper thigh young boys would get in theaters for quite a while. Theta Bara. Cleopatra. When you think of a movie costume being too risque for 1917, you probably picture a girl showing a little too much ankle. But Theta Bara wore some very revealing outfits in 1917's Cleopatra. A major selling point of the film was Bara's 50 separate costume changes, and though not all the outfits were scandalous, there were a few that left little to the imagination. The New York Times review stated, "The costumes are so thoroughly in tune with the period that they are likely to cause not a little comment." But Bara wasn't going for cheap thrills. She delved deep into the role and reportedly worked with a curator of Egyptology at the Metropolitan Museum to research authentic details for costumes and jewelry of the period. Bara didn't stop with the costumes, she was thoroughly filled with the spirit of Cleopatra. "It is not a mere theory in my mind. I have a positive knowledge that I am the reincarnation of Cleopatra. I live Cleopatra, I breathe Cleopatra, I am Cleopatra."